He thought selling my cabin for $60,000 was his biggest win, until a knock at the dinner door changed everything. I had not planned to come back. For 7 years, I told myself this town no longer existed. I moved, changed jobs, changed my name on social media, and learned how to breathe without looking over my shoulder. But some places never leave you. They wait. Quiet. Patient. The road curved the same way it always had, narrow and grey, cutting through tall pine trees that whispered in the wind. I slowed my car without meaning to. The air smelled sharp and cold, like wet wood and old snow. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as memories pushed in. Weekend mornings, coffee on the porch, Ethan laughing like the world was easy. The cabin should have been there. I knew exactly where it stood. At the end of the road, past the bend, where the trees opened just enough to let the sunlight fall on the glass walls. That cabin was not just wood and stone. It was years of saving. Late nights. Missed vacations. A dream we said would be ours forever. But when I reached the spot, my chest went hollow. The cabin was gone. Not burned. Not broken. Just gone. The land looked stripped, like a wound that had healed badly. Dirt where the porch used to be. Tire marks cutting through the grass. And there, near the old gate, a white sign leaned sideways. Sold. I parked the car and stepped out. The cold air hit my face, but it did nothing to cool the heat rising in my chest. I walked slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast, I would fall apart. $60,000. That number echoed in my head, though I hadn't heard it yet. I reached the fence, my fingers brushing the rough wood. This was where I used to stand and watch the sun set. Where I once believed in promises. That was fast, a voice said behind me. I didn't turn right away. I knew that voice. It had lived in my ears for years, even after I left. Ethan. When I turned, he stood a few steps away, hands shoved into his jacket pockets like he had nowhere else to put them. His hair was shorter now, his face sharper. Time had touched him, but not gently. He looked tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. "You're back," he said, like it was a surprise and not something he had feared. "I heard you sold my cabin," I replied. The words came out flat. Too calm. I didn't trust that calm. It felt thin, like ice. He shrugged, eyes sliding past me to the empty land. It was just sitting there. No point letting it rot. Rot. I looked at the space again, trying to picture the way it used to be. The warm light inside at night. The sound of rain on the roof. The place where I thought we would grow old. "That cabin wasn't yours to sell," I said. He gave a small smile. The kind that used to make me feel safe. Now it felt wrong. We were married. It was complicated. Nothing about this was complicated. It was theft. It was betrayal. But I didn't say that. I swallowed the words and tasted something bitter. We stood there in silence. The wind moved through the trees, making them creak and sigh. It felt like the land itself was watching us, remembering things we pretended not to. 7 years. That's how long it had been since I left this town with one suitcase and a heart so heavy I thought it would stop beating. I remembered that night clearly. The argument. The papers. His voice telling me to trust him. "You don't need to read everything," he had said back then. "I've got it handled." I trusted him. That was my mistake. "You look good," he said suddenly, breaking the quiet. I almost laughed. I almost cried. Instead, I nodded. "So do you." It was a lie, but it felt easier than the truth. He shifted his weight. "I didn't think you'd ever come back." "I didn't think you'd touch the cabin," I replied. He met my eyes then, really looked at me. Something passed between us. Recognition, maybe. Or fear. "People move on," he said. "Yes," I agreed. "They do." We walked toward his truck without talking. It was parked where the driveway used to be. The gravel crunched under our feet, loud in the quiet afternoon. Every sound felt sharp, like my nerves were too close to the surface. "Dinner?" he asked, opening the door. "We can talk." I hesitated. Every part of me said no. But another part, older, quieter, said this was why I came back. "Fine," I said. As we drove, the town unfolded around us. Same small shops. Same faded signs. Same places where my life had once been simple. People glanced at us, some with curiosity, some with recognition. I wondered what stories they told about me after I left. At the house, nothing had changed. Same walls, same table, same feeling that I was stepping into a place where time had frozen without me. I took off my coat and sat down. The chair creaked under my weight. That sound alone nearly broke me. "You always loved this place," he said, setting plates on the table. The quiet. "I loved what I thought we were building," I answered. He paused, then continued like he hadn't heard me. We ate in near silence. The food tasted like nothing. My mind kept drifting back to the cabin, the papers, the signatures, the small details I ignored because I trusted the wrong person. "You still mad about the past?" he asked, not looking up. I studied his face. The way he avoided my eyes. The way his hand shook just slightly when he lifted his glass. "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm listening." He frowned. "Listening to what?" "To what you're not saying." The room felt tight, like the walls were leaning in. Outside, the wind picked up. The trees scraped against the house, slow and steady, like a warning. I didn't know yet how this would end. But I knew one thing as I sat across from him, watching him pretend everything was normal. The past wasn't buried. It was waiting. The silence between us grew heavier as the minutes passed. It wasn't the calm kind of silence. It was the kind that presses on your chest, the kind that makes you count your breaths so you don't say the wrong thing too soon. Ethan chewed slowly, eyes fixed on his plate. The sound of his fork against porcelain felt too loud. I noticed small things I never would have before, the way his jaw tightened, the way his shoulders stayed stiff, like he was always ready to defend himself. "You still eat too fast," I said quietly. He looked up, surprised. For a moment, something softer crossed his face. "You used to say that." "I used to say a lot of things," I replied. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You always liked fixing people." "I liked believing people," I said. That wiped the smile away. 7 years ago came rushing back in pieces, like broken glass. Late nights when he came home smelling like stress and cheap coffee. Envelopes he shoved into drawers. Papers he asked me to sign while the TV was loud and my mind was tired. "It's just routine stuff," he'd said. "I trust you," I'd answered. I trusted him with everything. "You really think selling the cabin was wrong?" he asked suddenly. His voice was sharper now, defensive. "It was empty. You left it behind." "I didn't leave it," I said. "I left you." He pushed his plate away. "Same thing." "No," I replied calmly. "Not even close." He stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. Outside, the sky was darkening. The pine trees swayed slowly, shadows stretching across the yard. "You always made me the bad guy," he said. "You walked away and let me deal with the mess." "What mess?" I asked. He laughed once, short and bitter. "You really don't remember." I did. I remembered everything. But I wanted to hear what version he told himself. "Tell me," I said. He turned around. "Money problems. Pressure. You wanted the perfect life, the perfect cabin. You didn't see what it cost." "I paid for that cabin," I said quietly. "From my savings. My overtime. My sacrifices." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes flickered away. That was the first crack. I leaned back in my chair, watching him. 7 years ago, I would have rushed to fill the silence. I would have apologized, even when I wasn't wrong. Now, I let it stretch. "Why didn't you tell me the truth back then?" I asked. He rubbed his face. "Because you wouldn't understand." "Try me." He sighed, like the weight of the past was finally pressing down. Things got complicated. That word again. Complicated how? I pressed. He walked back to the table and sat down, avoiding my eyes. "I made some choices." "Without me," I said. "Yes." I remembered the night everything ended. How he handed me a stack of papers and said we needed to sign fast. How tired I was. How my head hurt. How I trusted his voice more than my instincts. "I signed because I loved you," I said softly. "Did you know that?" His fingers tightened around his glass. "You always make it sound so dramatic." Because it was, I replied. The room felt colder. Or maybe it was just me. I stood up and walked toward the counter, pretending to look for dessert. My hand shook slightly as I opened a drawer. Not from fear, but from restraint. You always cared more about that cabin than me, he said behind me. I turned slowly. That's not true. Isn't it? He snapped. You talked about it like it was a person. Like it mattered more than us. That cabin represented safety, I said. A future. Something solid when everything else felt uncertain. He scoffed. And where did that get you? Here, I answered, finally seeing clearly. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. I sold it for $60,000. You should be grateful. You get half. The number hit me like a slap, even though I had expected it. 60,000. I repeated. Yes, he said quickly. Cash buyer. Easy deal. I looked at him carefully. Did you check the papers? He laughed, too loud. Of course. I handled everything. There it was again. That confidence. That carelessness. My mind went back to a quiet afternoon years ago, when I found a document he forgot to hide. Legal language. A name I didn't recognize. I remembered how my stomach dropped as I read it slowly, carefully, something I should have done from the start. I had known then. You never read what you signed, he said, his voice almost mocking now. You never liked that stuff. I walked back to the table and looked him straight in the eyes. I learned. He shifted in his seat. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said. Just that people change. Another silence. Thicker this time. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. The lights flickered once, then steadied. Ethan glanced toward the door, then back at me, like he expected something, or someone. You're acting strange, he said. So are you, I replied. I picked up the plates and carried them to the sink, buying myself a moment. The water ran loudly as I rinsed them, my thoughts steady and clear. 7 years of waiting. 7 years of letting him believe he got away with it. You don't have to stay, he said from behind me. We can finish this another time. I turned off the tap and faced him. No. Tonight feels right. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, then flipped it face down without checking. That made my heart beat a little faster. I dried my hand slowly and smiled. Small, calm, controlled. I'll get dessert, I said. As I stepped away, the knock came. Hard. Loud. Final. The sound cut through the house like a blade. Ethan froze. The past had caught up. And this time, there was no place left to hide. The knock came again. Louder this time. Ethan didn't move. His body went stiff, like he had turned to stone. For a brief second, I saw pure fear on his face, the kind he never showed me during our marriage. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Are you expecting someone? I asked calmly. He shook his head too fast. No. The knock echoed through the house, deep and heavy, shaking something loose inside the walls. Inside him. I walked to the door before he could stop me. Each step felt slow and steady, like I had practiced this moment in my mind 100 times. My heart was beating hard, but my hands were calm. When I opened the door, 3 people stood there. 2 men and 1 woman. Dark jackets. Serious faces. No smiles. Good evening, the woman said. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Behind me, I heard a sharp breath. Ethan. Yes. I said. We are looking for Ethan Miller, one of the men said, his eyes moving past me into the house. That's him, I replied, stepping aside. Ethan stood frozen near the table. His fork had fallen to the floor, lying there like something dropped and forgotten. The color drained from his face as the agents walked in, their presence filling the room, changing the air. What is this about? He asked, his voice cracking. The woman pulled out a badge, then a folder. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding a property sale. Ethan laughed nervously. There must be some mistake. No, she said. There isn't. They sat at the table like guests invited to dinner. One of the men opened the folder and spread papers across the wood. Documents, photos, bank statements. I recognized some of them. I had stared at copies of those same pages late at night, years ago, while Ethan slept beside me. This cabin, the agent said, sliding a photo forward. Built 7 years ago. Ethan swallowed. I sold it legally. That's what we are here to discuss, the man replied. I leaned against the counter, watching. The room felt quiet now, almost peaceful. The storm had finally arrived, and I was no longer standing in the rain. The funds used to purchase this cabin, the agent continued, were tied to an illegal operation under investigation at the time. The property was placed under a federal land trust. Ethan's hands started to shake. That's impossible. You were notified, she said, tapping a document. Your signature is here. He stared at the page like it might disappear if he looked long enough. And selling the property, she added, without federal clearance is a crime. Ethan turned to me, eyes wide. You didn't know about this, right? He asked desperately. Tell them. I met his gaze. For 7 years, I had imagined this moment. I had wondered if I would feel angry, or sad, or empty. What I felt was clarity. I knew, I said. His face broke. What? I found out 7 years ago, I continued softly. That's why I left. You let me, his voice cracked. You let me sell it. Yes, I said. The agents exchanged a brief look but said nothing. They already had what they needed. You could have warned me, Ethan whispered. I stepped closer to the table. I did. Back then. I asked you to tell me the truth. He shook his head slowly, like a child who didn't understand how things went so wrong. You waited, he said. You planned this. I waited, I agreed. I planned nothing. I let you be who you always were. The woman agent closed the folder. Mr. Miller, we are placing you under arrest for fraud and illegal sale of federal property. She stood. The other agent moved behind Ethan. This can't be happening, he said, his voice small now. As they cuffed his hands, I noticed something I hadn't before. The way his shoulders sagged. The way his confidence drained away completely. The man who once told me I didn't need to read the papers now couldn't even stand straight. As they walked him toward the door, he stopped and looked back at me one last time. You ruined my life, he said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. No, I replied. You did that the day you lied. I just stopped protecting you from the truth. They led him out into the night. The sound of the door closing felt final, like a chapter ending exactly where it was meant to. I stood alone in the house for a long moment. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, calmer now, like it had finished saying what it needed to say. I picked up my coat and walked to the door. Before leaving, I looked back at the table, the empty chair, the untouched food, the scattered papers. 7 years ago, I left with nothing but silence. Tonight, I left with closure. As I stepped into the cold air, I whispered the words I had carried for so long. You sold my cabin. I sold you to the truth. And for the first time in years, the past finally let me go.